Hello. Honestly, I've been feeling the most anxious I have in a couple months, I'd say. The last time I was anxious was also related to money, and it was when I was just about to leave Kopangan, coming to Europe, and I had a fair bit more money then, but I was just anxious about the fact that I knew that I was feeling called to come to certain places within Europe, but I knew that money would run out significantly faster, and I just didn't really know how things were going to work out. So I was getting anxious about that already. And right now I'm anxious because I checked my bank account yesterday and I really don't have a lot. I probably have enough just to last me till the end of the week, and yeah, so that was stressful. All is well because luckily I have some Japanese money and I have a lot more birthday money than I realized I even had stocked up in my bedroom. So I'm gonna get my mum to send me that, and so that should last me until I get to Tenerife in like about a week's time actually. And the intention is I'm going to find somewhere to volunteer while we're in Tenerife. I would go home now, but it's December and it's getting close to Christmas time, which means the flight prices are astronomically expensive. So it just doesn't make sense for me to try to book anything right now, because I would be spending more money on the flight than I would just like making do for the next month or so here, and then going back when the flights go cheaper once the new year rolls around. And I know this might sound really crazy to anyone who's just looking at my situation from a logistic point, but and yes, there is some resistance around going home because I don't feel ready to go home yet, but it's also like I know I'm not meant to go home yet. We had some rough plans about what we would do while we were in Europe, and Simi, Andrea and I were all feeling the call to go to Egypt together, maybe to go to Morocco and to be in Portugal together. Now obviously timelines change and plans change and things change, so like we were never planning to go to Tenerife, but it's happening. We're feeling the call there. The signs to go to Tenerife have definitely been coming through. So about a month ago, one of my soul sisters, Eva, messaged me and we caught up, and it was really beautiful, and she mentioned that she knew of a community in, first of all, Tuscany that she could connect me in with, and that she knew one in Tenerife. And at the time I just said, you know, I'm really grateful to those recommendations. I'm not really feeling the call to those places on this Europe trip, but one day in the future maybe I will go there. And then Simi felt the call to go to Tenerife. One of our soul sisters who was staying at the same accommodation as us a couple weeks back, she has a strong connection to Tenerife and she was thinking of living there. She's also going back there at the same time that we are. One of my other soul sisters who I spent a lot of time with in Portugal, she also feels a strong call to Tenerife and spent about 9 months there, and she has considered and is still considering living there in a community. And then Simi and I were in a shop the other day, and the lady said, well, have you been to Tenerife? You should go to Tenerife. The community, the spiritual community there is amazing. Also, on a side note, this lady recommended that we go to the very small island off of Tenerife that is where the community that my friend recommended is on. It's not the island that most people go to. It's like a very particular place that you can go to in Tenerife. And there's a lot of spiritual communities there. So I just wanted to point that out because that's such a particular synchronicity, as always. And I know for a fact that Tenerife also has this very like nurturing feminine energy, and it's a very heart-centered, heart-opening place. Now keep in mind, this year I have spent 2 months in Kopangan, which has rose quartz in the land. A lot of people go there for healing, and a lot of people go there for like heart-centered activations, whether they know it or not. I am currently in Glastonbury, where I've been for almost a month. This is a sister spot, I'm going to say, to Kopangan, and the energies are quite similar. I think this one's more potent, especially at this time of year, with all the astrological things and just the things that are happening on the land. It's clearing out more than it normally does. And then now I'm feeling called to Tenerife, which is another heart-centered place. I don't know about you, but I'm sensing some synchronicities and some signs here. And it makes sense because pretty much all of this year I've cleared out so much stuff like crazy. And also I began the year pretty much beside Wollongong back home in Australia, on land that has black obsidian in the land. So it's super powerful. It's even more intense than Glastonbury, may I say it. Oh, the door just opened. Who's coming in? Who is it? Is it an elf? Is it an elf? I can't really tune in right now. I'll tune in a bit later. And also, we've been burning these candles. So the one on the the one on the left is about self-compassion, and the one on the right is about financial abundance. So it makes so much sense that the one on the left has burnt as much as it has, and the one on the right is where it is, right? Because obviously if you have to have a foundation of self-compassion and self-love first and foremost before you get to the financial abundance. Thank you so much for helping me. Before I started this video, I was still feeling anxious. I had thought out solutions in my head that are very valid as to how I'm going to sustain myself for the next couple of weeks. I'm not even going to justify it that way, actually. I am allowed to feel anxious no matter what, even if there is rational reasons to feel anxious or even if there's not. And I was feeling anxious to the point where I didn't even want to talk to the camera. Like, I didn't feel like my voice would even come out, but I knew that it was really important also for me to share, because in the process of sharing I would be able to process things and feel better. So thank you so much for holding this space so that I can do so. So last night was quite intense. So I was feeling triggered about the money because I realized how low I was getting, and I had a trauma response actually. And at first it confused me because I know what my triggers are that can lead to trauma responses. I figured out, I'm gonna say, most of them from what I know. And oh, the door opened again. Who's trying to come in? Yeah. So we got home last night. I was feeling stressed about the money thing and I was feeling triggered, and I knew that, so I was like, okay, let's do the things that help you feel safe and look after yourself. Let's cleanse some of that out. So I went and had a shower so I could cleanse whatever out. And then I lay in bed because I felt I needed a rest. And then that's when I started to notice that I was having a trauma response. My hands were starting to feel a bit numb when I moved them, and I could feel my body shutting down. Numbness is, for me, normally the first sign that I'm starting to have a trauma response and disassociate, so I'm really vigilant about that. And then second of all, my body was feeling weak. And for me, that is normally another part of my trauma response, where my body starts to shut down, and it's pretty much the result of my body feeling like it is in a past situation I have been in that has been traumatic. And for me then, shutting down my body was the first thing I could do to protect myself. So that comes up. sometimes for me as well. And so I was like, okay, why am I having a trauma response? Right now what I'm processing is my relationship about money. And I had a bit of a think about it, and I realized that it's because the last time I was in a situation where I was feeling stressed about money because I was in my head running out, and not feeling safe and in control of, first of all, money, of course, but also in control of my life as a result of not feeling like I have enough money. The last time that happened was a few years ago when I was still with my ex-boyfriend, and he knew that I was stressed about money, but he would keep forcing me to lend him even more money, which was adding to the stress. So my body and my mind, feeling stressed about money now, associated this experience with that experience, which clearly I hadn't processed. So that's why I was having a trauma response. So I had my door open and I was doing my disassociation exercise. I'll just mention it here because it might help somebody. But my specialist counselor taught me how to do it when I called them one day after a trauma response. A few times actually I've called them after a trauma response just to talk it out and just to go through the exercise, to have someone there to like prompt me. But basically you go through your 5 senses. So the first one is, for me, is I'll do 5 things I can see in the room that are a particular shape. So yesterday I did circles. So you have to go into as much detail as you can about the things that you see. And then it's 4 things that you can hear. Again, like all of them as much detail as you can bring, because the whole intention behind it is bringing your body back into the present moment and your mind back into the present moment and grounding yourself there, instead of it re-experiencing the trauma in your past. And then the third one is things that you can, I think, feel. Wait. Oh no, yeah, feel. And then it's things you can smell and things you can taste. Now, because I was feeling weak and numb and my body was feeling tired as a result of the trauma response also, so I wasn't putting in as much effort as I maybe ought to have to try to get myself out. After I did the 5 senses, I still wasn't feeling that great. It only helped a little bit. So then my body was starting to shut down and I was starting to fall asleep. Mind you, I was also tired, but it was also largely due to the trauma response I was having. And then Simi came over just to check in about like when I wanted to make dinner, and then she could see that something was off, so she was like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, I'm kind of having a trauma response. And she was like, okay, do you want to talk about it? If you need anything, like, I'm right here, I'm right next door, like, you can just call me. But yeah, basically I like dozed off a little bit, and then I would have fallen asleep there and then, and I knew, because my body was falling asleep, that's clearly something that I needed. But Simi also asked me, like, do you want some food? And I recognized that, you know, looking after my human body, having food is probably the best thing I can do, and then sleep would come after that. And I also knew, like, it worked out for the best, because then I also processed a lot of things and spoke to Simi about what was happening for me. We did a lot of clearing last night. We cleared on this bed for like maybe 3 hours. Our ideas in this human body about our lack mentality around money, our lack mentality around like love, like things we need to process around love and our ideas of love. And it was like processing things from within this lifetime, clearing from our ancestral lineage like 9 generations back, and also clearing things from our past life that are connected to whatever is causing stagnation in this life. So it was a lot. I managed to process change my story around my relationship with my ex-boyfriend, which I knew I could feel that I needed to change the story I had around our relationship. And I cried so much and I released so much, and I shared things with Simi that I've been afraid of sharing, because I don't want people to feel sad or to suffer as a result of the abuse that I've endured. Yeah, it was a lot. The story that I told myself within that relationship and until now is that because my ex-boyfriend, I loved him so much, and I could see the beautiful person that he was if you just took all the trauma that he was suffering and the pain and the anger and just took that away. And I just wanted what was best for him. I wanted him to have the best of everything, and I wanted him to heal and to feel what it is to have unconditional love, because he had never really experienced that before. So I needed to change my story around that. I needed to move away from the love and light part of love, right, which we all see and in some ways experience walking this spiritual path. I needed to shift away from that and actually examine the suffering and the pain and the abuse that I had experienced, and recognize that I wasn't deserving of that, and no one is allowed to treat me or anyone else like that. And that's been my blockage for the whole time during that relationship, for the whole aftermath afterwards of me coming to terms with how the relationship actually was, and not me just looking at it with rose-tinted glasses. And yeah, so it was big. And that wasn't everything that we processed. There were so many other things that came up. So I'm just recognizing now that that's talking about being in an abusive relationship is probably one of the things that I struggle most with in owning my truth. But actually, I know that the reason why I've been feeling especially called now to do YouTube is because it's a sign that I'm ready to really share my truth. I'm really ready to confront the things that are hard to be truthful about in my experiences, in my life. And yeah, thank you for holding this space to allow me to share, and hopefully allow my stories to serve as, I don't know, just like an opportunity to heal for other people in knowing that they're not alone in these experiences. I just want to be always authentically real and not just share the highlights and the happy moments of traveling and just life in general, because it's so important to honor the challenging parts. And I know that I'm good at taking those things and transmuting them, but also having equal gratitude to those moments that I would in a happy moment, and recognizing that those dense moments and the hard times are very, very valuable and a gift for us to grow, and for us to have an even deeper appreciation for the moments where things are going right for us, because we know what it's like to suffer. We know what it's like to feel pain, and everything is beautiful. It's all equally as beautiful and important as each other. That's right. So after I woke up from the trauma response, kind of, before I went downstairs to have dinner, I was on my Instagram and I was replying back to one of my soul sisters who Simi and I stayed with in a past accommodation in Glastonbury, and we connected for 2 days and we didn't get to like hang out as much as we probably would have liked, but yeah, we were messaging and I happened to check her Instagram story. Keep in mind, this is someone that I don't know super duper well, definitely a soul connection, but anyway. So I check her story and she's shared my post about wanting to give people Reiki sessions and intuitive channeled readings. And I just felt so loved and so supported. And I was so grateful because this was just after I was like in this big process around being stressed about money, right? And like I tried to like really tell myself, you know, the reason why this is coming up, the fact that you are loved and supported, is because you deserve to take up space in this world, and you deserve to be able to be of service to others, and the work that you do is valuable. That's one of the things, the signs that were coming up in this. And I'm also just so grateful to have such beautiful friendships. And something that was coming up for me a lot recently was, apart amongst all of the many things that have been coming up for me, is like, because I've had past lives as a witch where I was hung or burnt because of my gifts and because I was trying to help people, and so in this life up until now I've been so scared of sharing my like spiritual side with people who don't particularly resonate with that stuff, because I've been afraid of their judgment, I've been afraid of losing friends. So I was like, oh okay, so the rest of my life I'm going to have like spiritual friends, and that's all I can have, because those are the only people who are going to be able to understand me and to resonate. But that's not true. Like, I have lots of friends who love me and support me because they love me for me, and I'm just really grateful. And even if they don't necessarily like believe in spirits or believe in psychic abilities or whatever, they'll make the effort to try to understand me because they love me and they want me in their life. Like, it just means so much. One of my best friends from home, we're like such polar opposites, and people are always like, how are you guys friends? How are you girls friends? Sorry. And yeah, like she finds it really strange when I share a lot of the spiritual side of things, but like she's always so supportive, and she always checks in on me because we haven't lived in the same city for like the last 3 years, but she'll constantly check in with me and see how I'm going and make sure that I'm still alive on the other side of the world. But I was just sharing with her how grateful I am to have her friendship, and yeah, it's just a lot. All the beautiful things. So Sophia, the soul sister who shared my story on her page, even though she doesn't know me well, I had given her a little bit of Reiki the last night we spent time together, because I could really feel that she was holding other people's energies and that she needed it. And in the message, after she said that, you know, she wanted to share my post and, you know, put it out there and support me, she was saying that it really helped her to receive that Reiki, and it helped her to recenter. And before I gave her the Reiki, the story I told myself in my head was that her husband's a Reiki master. So I was like, well, who am I to give her Reiki? And you know, like it's gonna be insignificant compared to her husband's abilities and stuff. But like, it just goes to show, you know, how much we limit ourselves and how much we deserve to give ourselves credit for the place where it's due, and yeah, I'm just grateful. So after I received those messages from Sophia, I got a call from my good friend Malti from back home in Australia, and I haven't really spoken to her much, or we haven't video called or anything for the last 6 months since I've been overseas. And she wanted to ask me about what Reiki is, because she wanted to support me and to ask around her friends to see if anyone wanted Reiki. So that's why she was calling me, and again, like, I just felt so supported and so loved, and it was just, I've got a lot to release at the moment. I'm sure you can tell. It was just reaffirming to me that even if I feel lost and stuck and unsure and not fully in control of my situation, like, you know, I'm talking about money wise and, you know, being able to support myself for the next couple of weeks until I find a place in Tenerife, but even so, it was just a sign that, like, no matter how lost or disconnected we feel, we're never alone. We're always supported, we're always loved, and we're always going to be guided and supported towards our highest good and our highest timeline. And this is probably the most challenging it's been, and like, I'm so used to being financially stable and comfortable. I've never let my money run this low before. I've had more money than this since I was like 16. So but I've been really proud of myself, because in the past, like, if this was me a year ago, I would have probably spent like the last couple weeks like so anxious and so numb and just constantly thinking about money. And I've only been really stressed like now and maybe like 2 months ago, and that's really been it. So I'm doing really well with like unattaching, also not attaching so much to the value of money, surrendering and knowing that I'm always supported, especially now, like, even if I'm feeling lost and uncertain, I'm always supported. And I know that, like, as long as you're following your joy and as long as you're doing the things that allow you to feel aligned with who you are and what your soul's purpose is, the universe is always going to support that decision. And for me, it's been quite simple. It's like, okay, if you're worried about money, which is like 95% of the reason why people tell themselves they can't travel even though they totally can, like, within reason, it's like, for me it was quite simple. It was like, okay, you're worried about money, that's totally reasonable. Okay, let's look at it this way. The universe is always going to support you for what is for your highest good. So if you keep traveling and you keep attracting in financial abundance, great. So you keep traveling, you're obviously meant to keep traveling. If for whatever reason the money starts to run out and money stops coming in, that's a sign that you probably need to go home, right? Or you need to find ways that you can travel without using money, aka like volunteering and woofing and couch surfing and whatever. Or you just, you need to go home, so then you go home. It's quite that simple. Like, you book a flight, you go home, and there's clearly things waiting for you back home that you're meant to experience for the next stage of the evolution of your soul. So no matter which way you go, no matter how much resistance you have, no matter how much loss of control perceived you have, you're always supported, you're always divinely guided, and you're always going to end up exactly where you're meant to be to learn the things that you need to next. So everything is perfect. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much better and so much lighter than I have all day, and I can feel like a little bit in my throat, but that's okay. It's a beautiful day outside and I don't need to feel bad, but I was feeling bad that I was feeling so numb and anxious and like not able to fully deeply appreciate how beautiful it is outside because of what I was sitting with, all my human feelings. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for holding this safe container for me to express everything that I wanted to tell you. I hope that in this moment, you are able to provide yourself with the love and the compassion and the patience that you rightfully and have always deserved for whatever is arising within you. I'm sending you so much love, and I will see you in a jiffy. Bye. Okay, on a side note, I can't make this up. I'm just setting up my tablet so I can edit this video, and I had to get a verification code sent to my UK number, and the verification code was 888116. So keep in mind, 888, I normally associate it with abundance, financial abundance, and 116 is the number I associate with myself because I was born in January 16th. Can't make this shit up. I was like, lol, I'm so supported. And the door just opened again, so someone's obviously wanting to come in to support me again.